We are. Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 30th live stream from the MisfitGamersStudios. I am your host, Vortex, and this is D&D Discussions. Unfortunately, we have a little bit of changed plans today. It is going to be a shorter stream due to some personal things I'm going through and some scheduling issues that I have throughout the rest of this week. I'm just not going to be able to push the stream very late today, so we are going to be on a tighter schedule. We're only probably going to go an hour, maybe an hour and a half, but we do want to cover two specific topics today. We do have another item submitted by Cosmic, so we do want to make sure that we go over that, our normal homebrew review for Monday, and then we're going to switch it over. We do have Lolcypher in the studio again with Kage with us today, so we are going to have him go over his Lich dungeon build and have him kind of talk about the idea that spawned that and why he wanted to do that. So we're going to do two homebrew ideas today. First, we want to do the review, then we're going to go over his idea, and then we're probably going to have to cut it short there. So again, sorry, I know we keep wanting to do the previous review of all the other items, but that's just, we don't have the time for that today, unfortunately. So let me unmute these guys so we can get them in, and we're going to jump right into our homebrew review today. Welcome, guys. How you doing?
Yo. What's happening? Excited to be here for another episode. 3-0. That's very exciting.
Yeah, you know, I wanted something a little bit nicer for 3-0. Technically, it was supposed to be last Thursday, and I had to cancel Thursday. I ended up just doing some games on Friday. Yeah, it's been a crazy couple weeks, and it's probably going to be crazier, but give it another month, and we'll be back on schedule. This month's just going to be kind of rocky.
For sure.
But either way, we do have a homebrew item that was submitted by Cosmic again, so we want to get right into this. I already have it up here.
Is this another one in one of his series?
I believe this one is the last one that we reviewed was going to be part of a group of enemies.
Yes.
So I believe this is another one of those. This isn't one of the scales. Gotcha. It's not part of the scale series. I believe that this is part of the enemy set that his players will be going against. All right, so jumping right in, let me move over here to our PC cam and get this up. Hopefully everyone can see it. Yes, this is the enemy-wielded item. So this is going to be the enemy-wielded item from the group that he's planning on running people through. So this one is going to be the Doppelganger's Tunic. I'm assuming that's, unless, Cosmic, you're intending for the spelling to be a play on words for doppelgangers. I don't know if it's supposed to be doppelgangers or doppelgangers, depending upon, I don't know if it's supposed to be a play on words or not. So let me know in the chat if you have a specific tie-in for that. But the item today is a light piece of armor. It is a leather tunic +5.
+5 to your armor class?
Yeah, so it's a +5 leather tunic, so magical item.
+5 for light armor, that's
and it is it's a legendary item for rarity. So it's AC bonus that it gives you. It's a 10 base plus your dexterity plus the +5. So you have a base 10.
Your full dexterity. So if you got a 20 in dexterity, you get a +5 and then another +5.
Yeah, so you're getting your dex mod.
10 instead of the basic base of 8?
No, well, most AC in 5th edition starts with a base 10. Like, if you have
am I thinking 4th?
Yeah. Well, because naked is 10. So this should be. So what's interesting is actually let's double check on that because I thought base. Let me double check because this is something that we always need to know. Because it is light armor that he said, or no, he said leather armor or light armor.
Both.
Light armor, leather. It said, but he did say leather tunic. So what's interesting is that like a tunic's usually clothing, which would not provide you any AC. But it is a light armor, so it's technically kind of in that range of clothing / armor, which would be interesting.
It's the armor version of the clothing, right? Because it's made with
right.
leather, it gives you slashing resistance. Not resistance, but like...
Okay, and he said it is just supposed to be for doppelganger. It was just that autocorrect wasn't working correctly. But the way he spelled it was actually kind of cool because it spells out doppelganger, and I'm like a couple, is it like a couple or a duo? Like I was trying to think, is there a very specific play on words that we were trying to go with here? So normally you have armor class. So normal leather armor would give you an 11 plus your dex mod, but because this is a tunic, technically it is still technical clothing, but it is given a light armor class, so it's going to give you a base 10.
Okay.
Which I'm cool with. I'm down for that.
That's kind of creative. I like it.
Yeah, I think that works well. So the attunement. So this is another barbarian item. So we haven't seen a barbarian item in the enemy category yet, but we have seen the barbarian item in his previous scales build. So this is going to be another barbarian specific item, which would also make sense because well, see, what I'm really curious about here is should this be considered a magical tunic and not armor? Because based off of being a barbarian, you want unarmored defense, correct?
Very much
so. If this is technically, for you, Cosmic, what I'm thinking here is on a technical level, your item type should not be considered light armor. It should be a magical tunic. It should be considered clothing because you're not giving it light armor AC. You are giving it an AC of 10, which is naked or clothing. So you're not going to give it its 11, so it's technically not light armor. It is just a magical tunic that gives you your dex mod and the +5, but it doesn't give you anything to your AC.
Well,
because if you're going to call it light armor, I think you're going to screw over the barbarian. So I think technically, and this is just more like semantics, but on a semantical like mechanical level, I think it would be read better as magical tunic.
The question would be for me is because your unarmored defense is supposed to be replacing whatever other type of AC that you would have. So, for instance, you would not use your dex modifier as a barbarian. I'm pretty sure it's your constitution modifier as a barbarian. So the question is, but you also get to add I think it's your strength bonus.
Yeah.
And
I'm just maybe that was a bad example. I'm just trying to think of there are some classes like a barbarian who, when you're unarmored, is when you get access.
And so what I think
That's
is
what
that
I'm.
unarmored defense, you would add on top of it the +5.
The plus to your strength from your strength. You mean?
No, from the equipment.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Is I would think that you would want your unarmored defense and then this +5 with the dex because this one is specifically allowing you to use your dex. And I like that. I'm liking that it's allowing you to use your dex and this extra +5, but I think it shortchanges the barbarian on a mechanical level if you call it armor.
Instead of this being like counted as armor, quote unquote, it was just more counted like a cloak. Because a cloak,
I think that's what
you can wear a cloak as a barbarian and still get your own.
Or like a sash. I'm just thinking, like, again, it may be semantical. It may just be nuance. And again, DM to DM, it doesn't really matter. It's your game. I'm considering the idea that if you are playing with players who are more raw mindseted, they may pull an issue with it being called light armor on a barbarian who's not supposed to be wearing armor. And again, that's the barbarian build. That has nothing to do with every barbarian. That's just, if the barbarian build was geared towards something and you say he has light armor, you may just find that as an issue.
Because some barbarians do wear armor. They choose to go that route if they want to. But
I've played a couple barbarians that wear armor.
He says he's used to playing with high AC characters, so he doesn't have a lot of knowledge on the low AC armor types, which is totally fine. Yeah, no, and I think what you did was you were on the right track. I don't think you chose the wrong armor type. I think you did great giving it a base 10 and not a base 11, because again, I think you're on the right track. Calling it a leather tunic that is magical, I think is the right route for a barbarian instead of giving a barbarian light armor. That's just my personal take on it.
Giving it that flat +5 bonus, I think, will enable it to be more versatile. Like if they want to use armor, if they want to use, say, light armor and have like their dex bonus, that's fine. But if they want to use their unarmed defense, they also can.
Yeah.
It gives you that versatility so they can do whatever it is. And there'll still be a relatively hefty bonus for whoever's using it. I
say it's great. I just that's the only thing that caught me right out the gate is I know that for certain barbarian builds, you don't want to technically be wearing armor. We've got a little bit of an echo again. Yeah, I think it's the dual mic. I think it's just because we have the lower quality mics right now still. I think it's just with 3 people and 3 microphones. It's just something that we're going to be unavoidable. So hopefully it's not terribly distracting, but appreciate you letting us know. Good to see you again too, Bobby Kiss. It's been a minute. Good to see you back in chat. All right, so we will continue with this. So attunement by a barbarian. So the built-in durability, or it has a built-in durability of 10. So each time the wearer... Ooh, interesting. So each time the wearer enters rage. Now I'm assuming that wearer/attuned. I'm assuming that it wouldn't be just anybody. But anytime the wearer enters rage, a piece of the armor is torn and falls off. After 10 uses, this item is destroyed. So again, I'm liking this idea every time you like, it's like the Hulk, every time you bulk out, you pop a stitch somewhere, and then eventually like a shoulder falls off, an arm falls off, like a like your pocket I like that idea that you're just bulking out, and then it's just slowly like unable to handle you. Okay, so it has 10 uses. Mending cannot bypass this built-in limitation. So it is a 10 use. It's not a 10 use piece of armor. It's great, but you can only rage 10 times while wearing it. Now, I like this though. I'm actually digging this idea so far.
I do like that. The one thing that I'm curious about, so it says mending can't bypass that. But what about upcasted mending?
I don't. I think the idea is that normally is.
You gotta do like,
I think with Cosmic, what he does is like the lore behind this is kind of the absolute, right? This object is designed to work this way, and it's not meant to be worked around for whatever the reason is. No, absolutely. But I think he would say that upcasting would probably not mend it either.
Right, and then you also have to be playing in a game that allows upcasting of cantrips.
That's that's true, because mending is a cantrip.
That is a topic for a whole other day. But
that is, upcasting on cantrips is actually a great concept.
Imagine a level 9 mage hand.
So summoner. Okay. So we have a note. We haven't gotten to this part yet, but Cosmic does give us a future note that when he talks about the summoner, he's referring to the barbarian wearer as that's raging. So summon is the creature that is summoned from the item's effect when the rage is activated, for lack of a better term. And then he is the type that tries to counter being outsmarted. So you two might have some more interesting conversations. Okay, so interesting. So you can wear this armor. It gives you the +5, and it allows you to get your dex modifier added on top of that. And you can rage up to 10 times while wearing it before it's destroyed. But it doesn't lose anything as it gets destroyed. It just, after the 10th time, you no longer have it.
I love the mental image. You've done 9 rages. You have, like, just the collar is left.
Yep.
Right? And it's still providing you this, like, +5.
Just somehow, just this tiny little tatter is providing you this +5. I love it. All right, so we have an item effect. So while wearing and attuned to the tunic, whenever the creature activates their rage, this tunic's magic summons a fey-like creature whose body resembles a large humanoid raccoon that shares all stats, feats, and other traits as the wearer. It wears a mask that matches the summoner's face. So just imagine this like giant ass like dire raccoon with a Chupa Libre mask that's like his wearer's mask.
Question. Is the raccoon bipedal?
Ooh, good point.
Or is it like...
It does say humanoid raccoon.
Okay.
Humanoid
Yeah.
shooting bipedal.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, it's a Rakasha, but raccoon or Rakshasa.
Raccoonasha.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see here. So. And it has, so that's interesting. It shares all the stats, feats, and other traits. That's fascinating. So whatever you've built yourself, you basically double yourself in battle. So every time you rage, not only are you were just straight up, you basically duplicate yourself in battle. So
does it have like all the same health and everything else?
So the summon has. So he says it's inspired by the Tanuki.
The Tanuki.
So the summon has 1 less armor class than the summoner.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that's natural armor class, not all of his bonuses.
No, I would
just just 1 less. As natural. Okay, so it has 1 less armor class as natural armor. So due to not having any armor, so it will be naked. So it's whatever your natural armor class is -1 as its natural, but otherwise has all the same stats as a summoner. So that would include your health. This extends to non-magical versions of the summoner's weapons, with all the same bonuses, including movement speed, movement options, land, fly, swim, whatever. Your hit mods, your damage mods, your core stats, current and max HP, etc. So current is very interesting that he put that there. He put current if you're damaged and you're raged.
Yeah.
So technically it will. So if you're at half health, it will summon at half health, but can be healed up to full. Because it says current and max. So if you have 100 hit points, but you summon it at 60, it will also have 60 out of 100.
And then you go right before the cleric, who just does like a mass heal. And now you got your 2 tanks. Although it's more like 1.5 tanks.
Yeah.
Like a tank and a hitter, because if it's the summoner's natural armor class, so you're looking at a 10.
Yeah.
Right?
But, I mean, if you
It
could
has
put...
an AC of
But then you
9.
could, like, slap mage armor on it.
Okay, so you got an AC of 14.
Hey, you know, an AG 14, but you basically double all of your other stats. Like, I mean...
It's kind of fire.
That's not that bad.
But I guess it is going to be an attack sync, like a damage sync, because everyone, like, if the enemy is smart, and they're going to reduce your, like, attacks per round, or your damage output per round.
I also gotta just comment, his visuals are so fucking on point sometimes. The fact that it's wearing a mask that looks like you, it's wearing your face as a mask, is just the most ridiculous thing I can think of.
Oh, imagine, okay, so you as the summoner have, like, a really high, like, charisma. Let's say you're like a barbarian bard, or a barbarian, right? And, like, it puts the mask on, and then it does, like, a whole Sir Barrington skit, where it's like, no, I'm actually that person.
So he goes on to say, so it's meant to be an almost perfect duplicate of the summoner. The main differences being the 1 less AC, its mask, and non-magical versions of the summoner's weapons, which I do like.
Does it have
that
a tail?
I'm assuming it's a raccoon tail.
I'm saying.
But I do like the fact that, again, it's not... It does literally mirror you. So all of your weapons and all of that, I love the fact that if you have a giant weapon, it's not magical, but it's still that weapon.
So dope.
I do enjoy that. If the summoner is at... Oh, we just talked about this. If the summoner is at 50 out of 100 HP, and they enter rage, that triggers the tunic summon effect, the summon's HP is also 50 out of 100. If applicable, the same applies to temp HP. So if the barbarian has temp HP, the summon will have temp HP.
You know, thinking about the AC
This is a better
again,
version of Simulacrum.
This is like so dope.
Thinking about the AC again,
Because you
because
know
it also said it has all the same feats and traits and so, which means it would also benefit from unarmored defense.
Yes.
So it would literally just be whatever your max, whatever your AC with the enhancement, everything else included. Just
Yeah, it's basically a copy of you without the tunic on.
right. So in that example, it wouldn't be an AC of 14 with mage armor. It'd be more like an AC of 20 because you've got to add in all the other.
Yeah,
stuff.
it's only minusing your base armor, but I mean, again, because if you have unarmored defense, it has unarmored defense. If you have a skill that gives you more armor, it has a skill that gives you more armor.
So unarmored defense, it has unarmored defense, but it gets summoned naked, right? So what if you're wearing armor and your AC is, let's say, 16, right? But if you were doing unarmored defense, it would be 20. You'd be like, oh, I'm not actually right-handed.
Exactly. Yeah.
My question is, what if a spell is affecting you at the time you rage? Like, say somebody else casts haste or fly on you. Because it does go into mention, like, if you have a fly speed or, like, whatever else at that time.
Okay, I'm going to let Cosmic answer it because it'll take him a second to type it out because that's really interesting. I think, based on so far what he said, if you're hasted, because temp HP is the same thing. If you're hasted, your summons is hasted. I 100% believe that's exactly what he's going for. It is an exact duplicate of your character in that moment. Because remember, it's current... Because it's current and max HP, it's temp HP, it's all your feats. It's basically a mirror image of you in that moment. So yeah, if you're hasted, I 100% believe he would do that as well. You don't want to take off the summons mask. He's very specifically says you do not want to take off this summons mask. Well, I wonder if that's what maybe keeps it under control. He might have that written in here. But what if taking it off turns it berserk?
I like that.
That's the
Or it turns it against you. Or
Yeah.
something like that.
Okay, so let's continue. So the summon acts after the summoner's turn, so automatically takes the summoner's next initiative, and remains until the battle ends, the summoner's rage ends, or until it is reduced to 0 hit points. Normal, totally understandable. Nothing wrong with that. Cosmic adds, if the summoner has a buff or a debuff, the summon also has it as well, whether or not it was summoned before or during the magic. Whether or not it was summoned before or during the magical effect. So whether or not it was summoned before. So that means that so it doesn't matter. If he rages and the thing comes out and then you buff him, it will automatically get the buff. It's a constant.
Oh, it's It's like
It's a constant mirror of.
But wait a second. No. Hold on. So you're saying that? Are you saying that if the first thing that happens is the barbarian rages, and then summons this creature, if after that, if I buff the barbarian, does the summon then also get the buff? Is that what you're saying? Because if that's true, that's interesting because, again, the health is treated differently. So they're not sharing a health pool or anything. But it's interesting that it's feeding all of those things. But that would mean that if the barbarian gets shot, because if Cosmic agrees, that means that the barbarian gets shot with acid arrow, they're both poisoned.
Or
if you use fire against the barbarian, dominate person. If fire AOE, think about it. If the barbarian gets caught with AOE damage and is now lit on fire, the summons is now lit on fire. If it's going to share all effects, buffs and debuffs. Now I don't know about fire unless it's magical. Maybe it has to be magical fire. But yes, so even if they aren't targeted by the spell, so yes, they are linked. Ooh. Anything that targets follow up question: is it the other way around? So we know that anything that targets the barbarian affects the summon. Does anything that affect the summon? Does that affect the barbarian in turn?
Is it a two-way street or a one-way feed?
Because if you accidentally say,
imagine you have to do it to the original barbarian, and everything you do to the summons does nothing.
That's what I'm wondering. Is the idea?
Damage, everything you do to physical summons does nothing.
Okay, so barbarian goes.
You try to dominate person.
So he says so buffs and debuffs work both ways, just not damage.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So buffs and debuffs. So again, if you get hit with a poison arrow, and you're poisoned, the other one won't take the arrow damage, but it will now become poisoned. If you get.
So what you do?
Interesting.
Is
okay.
Be a barbarian, wear this thing, rage, and get buffed to all hell, and then go invisible. So that way
you're both invisible.
You're both invisible, and now because you're invisible, you can't really be targeted.
Okay.
But once, if the summon attacks and loses visibility or invisibility, would that mean hidden barbarian also? It would also lose invisibility, right?
Because their buffs and debuffs are linked, and so the second one loses it, the other one's going to lose it.
But wait a second. No. See, the buff is gaining the spell. Losing the spell isn't a debuff.
Is it not?
Dispel magic would remove the debuff, would be a debuff. But you uninitiating a spell isn't a debuff. I would not consider that. I would think that if you cast invisibility on one of them, they both go invisible. But either of them are now under their own invisibility. Because like you said, damage doesn't matter. If one takes damage and becomes visible, the other one didn't take damage.
Think about this. Hypothetically speaking, if the spell haste ends, what happens to you? You are now stunned for a round.
Yeah.
So that means both people are now stunned for a round. And it specifically says at the end, when that happens, the spell ends.
Right.
So if the spell ends, if the spell is no longer affecting me, does that mean it's also no longer affecting my duplicate?
So I think it's upon initiation. The way I'm reading Cosmic's rules is upon initiation, the debuff for the spell. So if you, the barbarian, for whatever reason, if you're haste, because again, you should be getting them at the same time. But if your haste were to somehow end early, that was not the cause of like a spell, not a cause of an active debuff, it shouldn't affect your doppelganger.
So theoretically, you could get this stunned effect twice from your haste, from when it ends on you and from when it ends on your duplicate.
I'm saying it won't happen that way.
No,
because
stunned status effect. That
it's because it's not I don't see the ending of a spell, even though it does cause this. That is not like a buff or debuff happening on you. That's just now the product of this spell. It will happen to both characters either way. But the idea is it's not a new thing being triggered upon you and targeting you.
Even the actual stunned won't affect both of them?
Only with so if the barbarian gets hasted, and that means that the summon will be hasted, they will only get stunned when their individual haste. I would think their individual haste will end and they will both get stunned individually, separately. Because again, if you go up and hit the barbarian on the head and stun him, that doesn't stun the other person. But if you throw magic stun, that would affect both of them, because we're talking about...
So you're saying if a monk comes up to you and does stunning strike, they're not both going to be stunned? That doesn't count as a debuff?
I don't think it's a magical debuff.
What if you get poisoned? If you just touch like a poisonous thing,
I'm a level 5 monk and I have magic hands.
There's a big controversy on whether monks are magical. There's actually a big thing on whether
the same thing as magic.
Yes, because you can make the argument both ways.
Your hands are considered magical for the purposes of overcoming magical resistance, but it doesn't necessarily say it is magic.
So that's a whole different conversation. But yeah,
correct.
And this is why I'm saying is like it really depends on are all status effects transferable or only magical ones? Because that's really what it comes down to. Is if you have a magical status effect, and so Cosmic, can you clear this up? Is any effect whatsoever transferable, or is it only magic effects? So again, here's
someone stubs his toe and
because it's not damage. But here's the idea: if the barbarian gets hit with a poison arrow, the summons is not going to take the arrow damage, but is the summons now poisoned? If it's not magical, that's just question number one. Is it? Because that will answer to us whether it has to be a magical effect, a magical buff or debuff.
It says with debuffs, yes.
But no, with damage, yeah, that was earlier.
Is it?
That was to our earlier question when if it goes both ways. But again, so I'm just curious: does it have to be a magical targeted buff or debuff? But we'll go until he answers that. Let me continue to read because he did answer some other things here too. So the summon is immune to all instant death and dispelling effects, such as banishment, power word kill, and other spells abilities with similar effects. So you can't dispel it, you can't banish it, you can't just be put to death instantly. Cosmic says preferably magic, but arguments can be made for non-magical. Something like a monk's stun would count as a magical in this case. So you get hit with an acid or a poison arrow, not both of you are poisoned. But a monk's strike, stunning one will stun the other because that one would supersede it. And he says that the arguments could be made, so the way I see that is he's giving it up to the DM. DM is the argument's good enough, let it roll.
The DM always has final say.
But I like that. I like that he's thinking about that. So yeah, so it can't be dispelled, can't be killed instantaneously. When the summon remains active, the summoner is immune... While the summon remains active, the summoner is immune to all damage... Hold on. While the summon remains active, the summoner is immune to all damage, but not all conditions. This tunic's effect is only the tunic's effect only limited by the barbarian's rage. If the summoner is buffed or debuffed, such as Bless, Aid, Bane, Fairy Fire, the same effect applies to the summon. So we've already covered that, definitely. Ignoring the spell's number of creatures targeted limit, usually based on the level it's cast at. If the summoner dies before the summon itself, such as by exhaustion from failing saves, or like sickness, sickening radiance, it will fade away. So it will go away if the wearer is. So this is interesting. So
while active, the summoner can take no damage.
So you can cast Power Word Kill on the summoner, but you can't cast it on the summon.
Correct.
And you cannot physically harm the summoner, but you can physically harm the summon.
Interesting.
So the only way to get rid of the summoner is...
You have to go after the summon first.
Or...
And remember, this is an enemy item first, because again, we always approach it from the point of view of how we use it for the players. But remember, this is an enemy item first, so it's a puzzle. The idea is that you have to learn, you have to take out... You're going to attack the enemy all day long until you realize that as long as it's raging and that thing is out, it's not taking damage. And that's his point. His point, again, of his challenging his players is they have to learn this puzzle. They have to learn that they have to go after the summon first before they can even begin to damage the dude. And then they'll learn once they kill him, probably after the first time, and then they get it, then they'll learn that there's 10 uses left. So there's probably more uses. They probably are only going to get it when there's 10 left.
I wouldn't believe that there would actually be a full 10 uses. I mean, when you get a new toy, you got to test it to make sure that it works, right? So he's used it at least once.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think he probably had many uses, but when they receive it, after their defeat, that will probably be 10 uses left.
Roll like a D8 and then re-roll anything over a 3.
That's fair.
And like that's how many uses that it's when my players were to accompany the boss with this tunic, the tunic has that many uses left in it.
I mean, depending on how close they are to the actual boss fight, I'm okay with that. But again, this is just for me as a player. A legendary weapon that I might be able to use twice feels like it sucks.
Yeah. Well, and again, you gotta.
Not like the item sucks, but it feels bad that I have to ration so much when I use this.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta. Nope, can't.
And
use
again,
it.
I mean,
nope, can't use it. I gotta save it for a really good time before I even want to think about touching it.
And
right.
this triggers on the rage, right? This
The
isn't
second
like,
you rage,
this isn't you can make a decision when you rage to do.
No, this happens when you rage.
If
Period.
you're about to rage, you better take this thing off, fold it up nice and neat, and then rage,
Oh my
or else
God,
this
that
thing's just gonna
visual
get
of like,
shorter.
you insult the guy across the bar, and he's like, okay, takes this off.
No, he does
the
the bro jersey should take off. Just
it's all nice and neat. Puts it on the table, folds it up, hands it to the rogue, and says, "Hold on to this."
right. It's like
And
we don't need him today.
Just like holds up, right?
Okay, so he does have a very highly important note here as well for this thing.
Yes.
It does say.
So highly important. If the summons mask is removed, what he said we should never do. It sucks in that the creature's soul over the course of the following 5 rounds, regardless of the distance between. Wait. If the summons mask is removed, it sucks in that creature's soul. Oh, so if you remove the mask, it begins to absorb the soul of the wearer.
Of the
Or
whoever
it's
removed it.
of that creature's. Yes. Whoever removed the mask over the following 5 rounds, regardless of the distance between them. I think it would still act as like the initiator, not the mage.
What if my familiar had a wand of mage hand and used that to remove the mask all of its own volition?
I still think it would come back to you.
Come on, let me like roll for my
So during this time, during the 5 rounds, it's taking your soul. The creature cannot move, including by teleportation or Misty Step or any of that, and must use its actions to make a Wisdom saving throw.
What about can the person who took off the mask, can they be banished?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. He says
It's
no. The
not-
creature, not the summon. The creature cannot move.
That's what I'm saying. If I wanted to banish the creature,
That took off the mask.
Yes.
He's saying it won't work. I don't think it will work. He's saying He says teleport. It won't. You cannot move even by teleportation, i.e., Misty Step.
Yeah.
Banishment maybe overrides this.
that's what I'm thinking.
But then again, I mean, banishment versus getting your soul sucked. Like, is it really that much better?
You're coming back.
where you're going.
You're coming back with banishment unless you're not from this plane.
That is true.
There are. What was that one version of banishment that
But
we
the-
saw last
but
week?
then
that
again-
banishes them to a specific
But then
place?
again, it does
Yeah,
say
it's
it
more
sucks
of a
that
force.
creature's soul over the course of 5 rounds, regardless of the distance.
And see, that's what I'm
So
saying.
even if you
because
banishment, it will still
different planes
probably.
are technically different than distances, right?
I mean, we'll see. I
But
think
I-
I think Cosmic's leaning towards the fact that
like,
you're not
it don't
supposed
matter,
to stop
like,
it.
you-
There's loopholes in everything, guys. Come on.
But you must use your action every round to make Wisdom saving throws using your Strength modifier as a form of Strength of Will or Mental Fortitude. I like that. A Wisdom saving throw with your Strength modifier as a concept of Strength of Will.
So it's just a strength save then.
Hey, yes,
if
but-
you're using the modifier.
Well, I think it's the idea of your Wisdom DC. So you use your Wisdom as a DC, but you get your Strength mod for your roll. So if you have a 12 DC but a 15 Strength, you would have a 12 DC
So
save.
he's rolling against his own wisdom DC?
I don't know. I'm trying to understand how it would
Okay.
roll Wisdom with another's modifier. So unless you're using it as the Wisdom is the DC save,
I think
and
in a
you're using
similar
the modifier
vein
from
to where
Strength.
you can use strength for an intimidation check, which is normally charisma. This is a situation where it would normally be a wisdom saving throw.
But if
where
your strength
you're
is
using
higher-
we're using strength instead, specifically because you're a barbarian and
Okay.
actually,
This
it's not
This
for
is
the barbarian.
This
It's
is
for
some
Anybody.
schmuck
I
that
say if you would take it, go, what's your Wisdom? 12. That's your DC save. But use your Strength mod for your roll. That's how I hear that this is working.
In my mind, I think the DM would have a DC in mind and say, okay, you're going to make a wisdom saving throw. Are you proficient with wisdom saving throws?
And give them the
Yes.
choice.
Okay, you are. Instead of using your wisdom stat, you get to use your strength stat. And I know you're not proficient with strength saving
Yeah.
throws, but you get to be proficient with this strength saving throw because it's technically a wisdom
Oh,
saving throw.
the DC is the creature's level.
the creature.
The
if
creature that takes off the mask. So
Yeah.
So if I'm a level
or
5,
schmuck.
then it's a DC 5?
I guess. I don't understand that. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because
I
that would
inverse
make...
it.
Yeah,
I
because...
would say if you're a 5, it'd be DC 15. And
Maybe
if you're
it's
15, it'd be DC 5.
maybe it's the barbarian's level.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's see here, because yeah.
I'm not sure what he said. Yep.
So do we have this clear? First off, let's make sure we have this clear. The creature that's having their soul sucked by the summon, it is the creature that removed the mask, not the barbarian, correct?
It's just some poor schmuck.
Well, I want to make sure because that's how we're reading it, but sometimes the way he writes is in the moment, and we've all done that where you're writing in the moment. But if he's meaning it to mean that anyone who removes the mask, but it's going to target the attuned wearer, that changes everything. Because then it all comes down to the barbarian. We may have it wrong that the summon would go... And why? And think about it.
And take off the mask, then...
Why would the summon go after someone else? It would make more sense that the summon's targeting the soul of the attuned. The player's level that removed the mask makes the save, and the DC is their level. Okay, so yeah, so whatever your level, and if you remove the mask, that is your DC. That is your level.
So I'm poor schmuck, level 5, farmer guy, because I have 5 levels of character levels in farming.
Yeah.
And I remove this Panda Man's mask. I have a DC 5 wisdom save. And
With the strength mod. Yeah, with your strength mod.
I'm sorry, yes.
I mean, that does sound a little bit weird because it does really lean towards low level players.
I'm a level 1 fighter man.
So let's see.
Well,
So
first of all, how was level 1 fighter man getting close enough and alive enough to take off this mask in the first
I mean that is fair. That is fair. But
I
let's finish
have
this up real quick because we have a little bit more.
Plot armor.
So if the creature is attacked or takes any damage while in this state, so during the 5 turns their soul is being removed, they make their next strength of will / mental fortitude saving throw at a disadvantage, which makes perfect sense. This is equivalent to death saving throws, but with some tweaks. The DC is equal to the creature's level. A natural 1 is instant death. A natural 20 is instant success. Any souls lost in this way cannot be recovered or otherwise undone by any means. So there's
what does instant success entail?
So this is where I'm starting to think is because it's 5 rounds and you have to save. So there is right now, and he did say like death saving throws, but normally with death saving throws you have to succeed 3 times out of potentially 6, right? You can have up to 6 chances to saving throw because five, right? So it's best 3 out of 5. But this is for 5 rounds, so I can only assume that he also means it's like death saving throws. It's best 3 out of 5. So you have to win
3 times.
You have to win 3 of those 5 rounds in order to not have your soul removed.
But this time it's not, and natural 1 is 2 fails.
So he says that. So he says that a success means your soul is not absorbed. So you only have to succeed once. You have 5.
No, you can't fail, is what this means, because it's trying to suck your soul out, and you're making
4 or
wisdom
5
saves to
turns.
stop it, right? So you need to succeed 5 saving throws,
Well,
or it sucks your soul.
maybe if you fail one of them, it's not the end of the world because a natural 1 is instant death. So that means something other than a natural 1, but still a failure.
I would think the best 3 out of 5.
instant
I think
death.
if it's for 5 rounds, it's best 3 out of 5, and just like a death saving throw, like he said, it is like a saving throw.
Yeah.
I would say that it's best 3 out of 5.
All right.
I still think the biggest hole in it, mathematically speaking, is just it doesn't make a lot of sense for a level 1 character to have a better chance at standing up against their soul being removed than a level 20. It just, and then what if you're a level 20? What, this thing is just overpowers you instantaneously. If you don't crit, you're dead. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like why would it be stronger against a stronger opponent? Like that's very odd.
Magnetism. The stronger your soul,
I
the
could
more it's attracted
see a way to explain it, but I don't see a reason to explain it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say that it sounds more like so I don't mind the idea of you take it off, it gets pissed at you, and it starts taking your soul. I kind of like the idea that you two are now locked in this battle. You two, in the middle of everything, freeze, and it just sits there and just like, I'm taking your soul now. Everything else is ignored, right? I kind of like this visual, but at the end of the day, I think best 3 out of 5, I think is what I would do. And I think that when it comes to the fight against it, I think it should be the summons level, is that it could be the DC save, because the summon would be the barbarian's level. That's one alternative. I don't think it should be the creature's level. But I also think that with the mindset, I think what would be better, my personal opinion in this direction, is instead of it making it against the summoner's level, I think it should be a wisdom DC. The character whose soul is being taken. Your wisdom is the DC, but you get to use your strength modifier on your roll. I think that makes the most sense, because at that point, if that was your dump stat, your soul, you don't have as much power of will as you do. You have more. Maybe it's not wisdom. Maybe it's constitution with a strength mod. I like the idea of pinging it against a stat against the creatures whose soul is being taken as the DC save, because then you're fighting against yourself. It is your ability to hold on to your soul. So if it is your constitution, if you have a hella high constitution, but I mean, I guess the higher the constitution means the harder it is to roll. So maybe what you know what I'm saying? Like, I think what
I would do this, because I agree with you. I don't like the level.
I don't think the level is the
DC
right way to
standing
go.
level. I would have the DC be like the summoner's level, or tied to that in some way.
Yeah.
Another thing that I'm curious about, though, so you take this mask off. And
So he did.
shows,
Sorry, he did say it is best out of 3 out of 5.
Okay.
Okay.
So you take the mask off, and it reveals this soul-sucking Dementor, like mob,
Ooh.
right? That's like soul-sucking you, right?
Yeah.
So you're the summon. I take your mask off and go, oh shit, that was a bad idea, right? And now I'm stuck.
Now we're locked for 5 rounds. You and I are now locked.
Now Kage is like, let me just put that mask back on, right?
Is that possible?
Because if I lift up your mask, if I do this and I say, oh shit, and I see like big old Dementor face, right? And then Kage goes, let's just put that back down, right? Would that stop the soul sucking?
I think it should.
I think it should.
I think it should.
I would rule it. It'd be like,
So yeah.
we're just gonna put that back.
So Cosmic, let us know. Can that be put back on? Yeah. So I think the biggest tweak should be where the DC save comes in. I love the idea of a DC save. I think it really should either be, because again, so the DC save is the number you have to roll higher than, right? That's how the 5th edition does it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Equal to or higher.
So one of two ways that I would solve this. Well, I guess for 5th edition, the way I would solve it is either go against the level, or go against the level of the summons, which would be equal to the level of the attunement of the barbarian. So you're basically all at equal level. It's part of the party, right? I would say that would be probably the best opportunity for it. Because in 2nd edition, I would just have it, you just roll under, which makes this a whole different ball game, because then it makes sense that the lower level you are, because then it's harder to roll under the low level. That would probably make sense in 2nd edition, but 5th edition wants to roll high numbers. So yeah, it would have to be the level of that, the level of the summoner. I also think for high point, I don't think, because this is just a summon in the moment of raging, I don't like the idea that... I love the idea of a creature, like a familiar that has this feat. I love the idea that a creature, anybody who takes off its mask is at risk, like a Dementor or something. Love the concept. For this build, I think that's one step too far. I think what should happen is it should be a detriment, because you're basically talking that the barbarian is now invincible right now, as long as this thing stands. So you can either kill this thing, or imagine being able to detain it and walk over and rip its mask off and watch that fucking barbarian sit there and panic as it has 5 rounds to fight for its own soul. I think high point rules, if I were to bring this over to high point, the soul sucking would be against the attunement. So it's your buddy. It's your pal. As long as it has that mask on, and it will do everything to protect you. It has all of your stats, and you're invulnerable. But if anyone either kills it, they're back to you. But if they could trap it, if they could stun it, they could make it go prone, and they could rip that mask off, oh, you're in deep shit.
So
also, I would have a DC to be able to grab the mask.
that's what I'm thinking.
And a DC to be able to lift
And
the mask.
I'm thinking there should be something akin to like a grapple check.
Yes,
with
I was
this
just thinking
thing.
that.
And I think it would be both to take it off and to bring it back down if you wanted to so do that, using what he has here saying it affects one of your buddies. I would do something to where it's like, because I like the idea where it locks one of your teammates and they can't do anything, but I also like say like there's this like shadow image of this creature's face just staring at you, and that's what's sucking your soul out. But the creature itself keeps moving and beating up all your other buddies while that guy's on lockdown. And so now you have to run over and actively try and tackle this dude and drop his mask down so that you can release one of your buddies, and then you still have to finish him off at the end.
You saw Chronicles of Riddick, right?
Yes, I have.
So with the half dead guy, you know how like when he would move and whatnot, like his like soul self would move and then do it.
Yes.
I have that visual with what you just said. So it's like his soul self would be there sucking the soul
Yes.
out, and the physical body.
So,
Yes.
so he does say that the putting the mask back on isn't necessarily doable, at least in the way that we're discussing. So it's not like, I don't think it's like the Chipper Libre mask. I think it's more like, I'm imagining a raccoon body with his head and kind of like a Mortal Kombat style, like
stapled onto his face,
or more like the Mortal Kombat style of like Scorpion, where he like takes the whole mask off, and it's like it's like the head is not a mask over the raccoon's face. It's literally like a whole.
Well, then I would ask Cosmic, what is it that is required to take this mask off? Because if that's the case, then it shouldn't be as simple as just like
And I think that I like like I said, I like the idea of being able to, like what you were saying, make this a creature to where it could like target somebody and then they're too locked in. I think it might be a little bit OP that it could lock one of your players and continue to fight. Personally, I think that may be a little bit too OP, but I do like the idea that, again, it could lock another player. But I also like the idea, too, expanding on the idea that if it was linked to the attuned, because remember, as long as the summon is alive,
for the players, like the players are going to get this.
Yeah, they're against. So imagine this: you're the players. We're fighting this thing. I take the mask off. I'm locked in. You guys have to free me, right? That's one option. I take the mask off. Well, now the barbarian's stuck because he has 5 rounds now, but we still can't attack the barbarian because he's still invincible. Because the summon, we haven't killed the summon. All we did was stun the summon, or at least got the mask off. And now those two are locked into battle for 5 rounds, giving us 5 rounds of preparation. But either we still have to kill the summon, or that. Now, here's another option. Here's the other option. Remember, this thing only goes off when you rage. I say what should happen if the summon, because here's why I want it to be linked to the attunement. It's linked to the attuner, right? It goes to the attunement soul. If the attuned ever loses the battle, the summon now becomes its own entity. It took the soul. It gets either full life or maybe goes up to 50% or whatever. But it essentially is now no longer a summon. That tunic is dead. That tunic now can go be picked up, put on, and it still works as is. But this thing just exists. You have to now kill it.
But the original summoner died.
Yes, the summoner's dead. That this thing is now just alive. It is not.
My next high point character's backstory. I'm gonna be this guy. Right, but after I absorbed the soul and became my own person,
You want to be the raccoon that absorbed the soul and just walked away? It was like
then like the magical transformation, like it was all powerful for a minute, and then like everything really took effect, and then I became a level 3 character, and we started the campaign.
But yeah, this is where I would go with it. This is why I linked it to the attunement, because if you could lock it in and it loses, it dies, but now you have this thing and then it goes full health. Remember, it has all the same stats as that barbarian, and imagine if during the battle it drops its weapons, walks up to the barbarian that you killed, and picks up its magical weapons, and now you're basically restarting the entire fight with that barbarian.
I would definitely need to articulate, because a couple of things. Like, I think it would be nice to give the barbarian an opportunity to put the mask back down. Because basically when you put that mask up, you win as long as you can stay away from that thing, right?
No.
The original barbarian's gonna die.
No, well, because he still has his saving throws. He still has his DC checks, and if he wins, the summon, maybe if he wins, the summon comes back under. But yeah, the mask will come back on.
So that is how you put the mask back on.
Okay.
You have to win the saving throws again. Your will forces it back under control.
It's trying to suck up,
and
it gets to use strength. So
and again, remember, it starts. Now, remember,
too.
let's say the barbarian you're fighting has 200 hit points. It summons this thing 200 hit points, but then you take the mask off. He's still undamaged, but for 5 rounds, you can wail on this thing because it's not going to break concentration. You wail on this thing, bring it down, because if he wins and it comes back, it's now only at 10 hit points. You still fucking kill it, and now you're against him. So I'm liking this whole thing. Again, linking it back to the attuned, I think is the right way to go for hype.
I do like that. I like that a lot.
So write this note down because we do have to get to the other topic. We are cutting time a little bit close. So also attacking the mask directly, sleight of hand to grab it. Okay, so in answer to your question, how to get the mask off.
Okay.
You can attack the mask directly, use sleight of hand to grab it, or use a strength check to pull it off. So that's how he has planned to take it off.
Wait, is it sleight of hand to grab it and then a strength check to pull it off? Do you have to do both?
I would read it that way, yeah.
I would say, yeah, it sounds like
Because
attack roll to grab it, sleight of hand to get it, and then strength to pull it.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'm liking this. I think that it has a lot of potential. I like the creature more than I like I like the entity that the summon is. I think more than I like specifically it being part of the tunic, if that makes sense. Again, I like this idea of something that's not just a summon that can have this ability. But even with the changes, even though it would have to have some substantial changes, the DC checks, as well as I would change it to the attuned soul and then have all of that link, it's still a very strong item. Even with all of those changes, it's still going to get a 6 out of 10.
I like it.
Because normally with that many changes, it would easily have been a 4 or 5, but it's such a strong item. I love the fact, again, I would change it to not be armor. I would change it to be a magical tunic. I would change the summon link to be going for the soul of the wearer, and then it could either become its own entity, full health, or it comes back to under control. I love that aspect. And again, that's more in line with some of the Cosmic, what you've talked about is some of like the curse aspects of some of these items, like the balancing aspect. So that would just be what I would do, but I still find it a very, very strong item. You know what, actually, no, let's give it a 7 out of 10 because I want to play with this more to bring something similar because I like this idea. I don't think it would be a barbarian tunic with this particular, but the idea of an item that can make a near copy of you, but that copy basically wants to be its own thing. So it's under your control unless the attacking party can free it, then it tries to go after it. I love this idea. Whether it takes your soul, whether you can remove a necklace and now it is its own entity and it'll attack anybody. I want to keep playing with it, so we're gonna pop this one a 7 out of 10, even with all those changes, because it is inspiring me to make something similar.
Just to put this side note on the record before we move on. The thought that I had is that at the beginning it said that this whole thing is dependent upon the summoner's rage.
When it rages is what activates it,
but
yes.
in order to maintain your rage, you need to either be attacked or do an attack on a creature. So if the summoner's just hiding behind a rock...
Well, yeah, because as long as the summon's out there, remember, the summoner, or the summon, once it's out,
So
the summoner, the summoner doesn't take damage. It can take effects, but it won't take damage. So yes, you bet that barbarian who's now raging and cannot take damage will absolutely be in the fight. You wouldn't want him hiding. Now, what you do bring up an interesting point. You take off the mask, now they're in that fight together. He's not technically
raging or like attacking.
He's not doing the thing. So you could...
I'd say that would suspend him.
I think it's suspended. It would still use his rage because you get to only rage for so long, right?
Well, you can rage for, I think it's up to a minute.
So I would say that it still counts. Every round still counts away from your rage timer.
For sure.
But I don't think that it would drop his rage.
Yeah.
No, yeah. You wouldn't want it to drop his rage because if he wins, he takes control and then he could rage again and summon another one. You can't do that. And if he loses, he dies. So I'd say, yeah, rage maintains during that, but it's still counting down.
I do think it would be cool that if he wins, even though he wins, he drops his rage, no matter what. Like, if somebody gets the mask off, like, that ends this use of it.
So, here's another...
But would he be able to summon it? But then what would happen to the summon? Because once he stops raging, the summon disappears.
Exactly.
So I'm the
So
barbarian.
once he finally finishes the win...
So he could immediately rage again. Well, no, he can't not before rest. You can't rage right after another rage.
You can.
Yeah,
You have
Can you?
so many rages before you have to rest.
Oh.
Right, so here's my thought. I'm the
So
barbarian.
that
I'm
makes
wearing this
sense.
tunic. I rage. I summon doppelganger number 1. And then I say, okay, cool. Drop my rage.
He
You
disappears.
drop your rage.
No, but he disappears.
Yeah, the second he
So but what we were talking about, if you win the fight against him, instead of him taking your soul and becoming its own entity, if you win the fight against him, we were saying that he just begins raid control, right? Well, raid control means you drop rage, he disappears, then you rage again and resummon him as he would be right here and now, because again, it's still an equal copy of you.
Yep.
But that's one more use of the tunic down.
Yep.
So if you wanted to, you could abuse it and roll. Okay. Yeah, no, I like this. I
Also,
7 out of 10, 100%.
Is that like if I'm the barbarian and you guys are all fighting my son my summon, right? And you're like, I'm gonna go for the mask. I use my action to do sleight of hand, so on my next turn I'm gonna pull, and I go, stop raging.
Oh, I'll be like, to stop you from doing that? Heck yeah, I'd stop raging.
Hell yeah.
Like,
You could, if you could do it, yeah.
Stop raging. Action, I rage again.
Well, I'm going to be really honest. This just makes me, as the barbarian, want to pop up my doppelganger and then, like, hide him in a cage and then just go run around being invincible.
You could do that too.
Just like, for a whole minute.
But
like,
you
guys, you can't
now remember, you can take conditions, but you can't take damage. But again, still valid use. Cosmic says he does like the idea of you using this as like a backstory character of like you're just the creature that earned it. Well, and again, you could either say it to where you were like a super powerful version. Maybe you were maybe a low level character got hold of this and you just took over a low level character. So you were like, yeah, I'm my own peasant. Fuck. Now I'm a level 1.
Like you were this super high powerful barbarian. You had the taste of power, and then you became your own thing, and the power faded, and you became like this level 2, level 3 thing. And so your motivation for requesting is like, no.
To get that power back.
Taste of that power. I want that power.
I like the idea that the reason why you don't have as much power is because on like turn 1 or 2 from you sucking that soul, somebody killed him.
Oh, you only got part of the
and
soul.
You only got some of his soul, so you only got some of his power. And like you are like you got your sentience from that portion of his power that you were able to hold on to, but like everything else was lost.
So this is how you have like a low level character backstory where it's like, and I killed a dragon, and I was this guy, and I was like Kratos.
We'll have to talk about this. We'll have to talk about this. And Cosmic, I will keep you informed of any ideas, but the idea of being able to do this, have this doppelganger, brilliant idea. I do like it. And again, none of these are saying what you should do. These are just what we would take from it. But I do like this doppelganger idea. The idea that a tunic that gives you these bonuses, but during the rage summons a copy. It's awesome. Like it's a lot of good visuals too. Again, your visuals are always just, I don't know where you get them, but they're fantastic. Barbarians are low wisdom / intelligence. They likely wouldn't be smart enough to drop the rage to prevent the mask from being removed, unless they had prior experience.
Don't you assume my barbarian's intelligence? Like,
I mean, to be fair, during raging, you're not really supposed to be.
Charisma is my dump stat, not intelligence.
All right. Well, yeah. So I still think it's a very strong item. I like it. It's going to spawn very many ideas for me. So thank you so much for that one. I'm very happy with it. All right. So we're just after the 1 hour mark. We still got a little bit of time. So I want to give you enough time for this. So we do have Lolcypher wants to talk a little bit more about his big build that he's done for. Is this your current campaign or is this a future campaign?
This is well, if my current campaign ever gets to it.
Right. But this is what you have.
This is like, so let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
So
take it away.
I have some players that want to do like a classic dungeon dive, like a classic dungeon clearing experience, right? And I run a living, breathing sandbox world where everything is organic, right? Like these underground chambers and dungeons and whatnot, they were built by people that had a specific reason for going out and like expending all of the effort to build something like this and use it. So everything like has a purpose, right? And it's really difficult to kind of come up with an in-game explanation for why something set up like a classic dungeon experience would exist in my setting. Right? And by classic dungeon experience, I mean you've got multiple levels of this dungeon, right? It could either be a tower that goes up or something that goes down there, but you got multiple floors, right? And you've got loot and gear and gold and treasure and all this stuff throughout all the floors, and you get more of that as you go down. But while you go down, you also get higher challenge rating encounters, right? Each floor is more tough than the last. And each floor has like a floor guardian. It's got all these traps and pitfalls, and it's got all these monsters that spawn in, right? Like, how do you put something like that that's so manufactured, that's so artificial? How do you put something like that into a living, breathing setting?
Cosmic wants to know, is your sandbox in the desert?
It has a desert. Right? That's where the sand comes from. But so I have these players that have expressed interest in this experience, and I wanted to be able to put something like that in my realm, but without it being just like shoehorned in.
Right.
You know, like I don't want it.
You come across a hole in the ground. It's a dungeon.
Yeah. And it's got 13 floors, and there are 4 bosses, and there's a bunch of treasure. Like,
yeah, you know.
Deeper. Why?
Yeah.
Who needs a bunch of treasure?
There's a level 8, a level 10, a level 15 sorcerer, all just hanging out in these dungeons on their own floors. I mean, they got the best Uber Eats out there. I mean,
exactly. Like, how do you explain that in more in-game set like lore, right?
Right.
It's very difficult, and I don't want to just shoehorn something in there for the sake of having something in there.
And that's also, you know, especially when you have players who might ask. Like I know that there are a lot of gaming groups out there who, you know, players are just like, oh, dungeon, cool, let's just go do it. And then, oh, we're done, move on. They don't even question the lore. But for those of us who do like to work on that lore and who like to have reasons for things and have that, it's like, yeah, how do you justify this giant unexplored or abandoned cave, and why are the monsters here? Why are there so many? And like, what, you know, because there's the easy questions. What was it? There's like, what was it? Oh, a dwarven hold, and now it's a dungeon. That's easy. But where did
it was originally a mine and then became this later, and they got infested with monsters.
But you're right. Okay. Like, why should I go there? Like, first off, what's the call to action? Why should I even go there? And why did everything else go there in the first place? Why is there a colony of spiders on that floor?
Yeah,
now, granted, you could just say
the next floor has like some water elementals and shit. Like
yeah, exactly.
What is the root cause?
And I will say this, if you want to try to build even like a small, like 5-level dungeon and even do a progressive build, even that is so difficult to try to, like you said, like, why is it only on that one floor? Well, you could make some sort of concept of why, oh, well, that layer, you know, because you went down, so each layer is actually like a half a mile apart, so that's where they live. But that's hard, like really wanting to get juicy into making all of that. If you are the type of DM like us who want those details and who want to make sure you have that explanation, once you get past like 3 levels, you're like, what am I even doing? Like, there's no reason for these things to cooperate.
Exactly. And so those are the questions that DMs need to ask themselves, right? Even if you don't have players that are ultimately going to ask, like, as a world builder, you should have thought of these types of questions for pretty much all places and buildings and like big structures and whatnot. Like, everything should have a purpose. Nothing is just there, right? And even the stuff that might just be quote unquote there, should still have an in-game reason. If the reason is some powerful archetype and just wanted to fuck with people and make this place. Like, okay, at least then you have some form of in-game explanation. So, I had that call, basically. I had players that wanted to do this, like, kind of classic dungeon dive experience. And I wanted it to fit in my realm. So, I devised basically an automated soul harvesting compound created and designed by an ancient Lich who was just tired of having to constantly refill the phylactery. Right? So for those of you who don't know, Liches, badass. Look into them. For those of you who do know, congrats. You know. So,
as long as you're not just using their base stats, like
right, yeah.
As long as you use them correctly, you'll get into that. I know.
Correctly. So a Lich, the base stat block of a Lich is, you know, it's nothing to sneeze at, but it could be much better. So this is in my setting, lore-wise, what I came up with. You have a Lich, fresh Lich, just became a Lich. It's great. What was the motivation for becoming a Lich, right? Well, you're an arch wizard. You want to study and just increase your knowledge over millennia, right? But you don't have a natural lifespan that can go that long and provide you with that. So you become a Lich, right? With the goal of increasing your own power and knowledge. right? More of a tame Lich, not so much of like, I want to be evil forever, just like, I want to live forever to know everything. But, as a Lich, you need to feed souls into your phylactery in order to maintain your unlife, right? So, you have this chore of essentially grocery shopping every so often. You need to go out, you need to get some souls, and you need to feed them into your phylactery. But the lore states that you can only really have in your default phylactery, your base phylactery, which is no like artifact to sneeze at, like it's a phylactery.
Oh yeah.
But you can only have one soul at a time.
Yeah.
In your phylactery. And you burn through that soul and it maintains your unlife. Well, once that soul is gone, you need to fill another one into your phylactery within a certain period of time, or else your phylactery shatters. And now you're on your own, like you only got one life, you know, you're YOLOing this shit once your phylactery shatters.
Until you do the whole research of getting it again.
Until you're able to create another phylactery, which is not an easy task.
Yeah.
Right? So, you become a Lich. You become immortal, essentially. But you still gotta go grocery shopping, right? You don't have to do it every week, right? Like you did before, but you still gotta do it. You still gotta be interrupted, right? So, what do? You got this big brain. You know, you're gonna use this big brain to figure out how to create another phylactery, a better phylactery, a phylactery that can hold multiple souls simultaneously, right? It's going to take a lot of research, it's going to take a lot of time, it's going to take a lot of sacrifices. There are going to be some peasant villages that go missing, right? Like, it's going to take some investment, right? But eventually, if you pull it off, now, instead of grocery shopping, you know, every 6-8 months for a new soul, now you've got a phylactery that can hold a lot of souls. So all you have to do is every couple of centuries just go on a slaughter,
Yeah.
right? Fill up your basket of souls, and now you're good for another couple centuries. But you still have the same problem. You still gotta go grocery shopping.
Yeah,
now
it's
instead
such
of
a pain
every
in the
6 to 8
ass.
months, you gotta do it every 400 or 500 years.
And on a much larger scale.
Right, and on a much larger scale. You're just making more work for yourself. Right? And if you're a Lich and you don't want to be interrupted and you just want to study and just do your book thing, just be a nerd.
Have you seen these kids with their magical items these days? I mean,
Exactly.
they don't even have to hit their opponent now. They just point the wand and it just does all the work. I mean, it's crazy. Like, it's so hard to just keep up with it.
So, as a Lich, you still have the root cause of your frustration. It's still there. You've just put a bigger Band-Aid over it, essentially. So what if, instead of having to go out and harvest a bunch of souls, what if you could just get really strong souls? So that way you don't need a whole bunch of them to last 400 or 500 years. Maybe you can get some really high level souls. And you can go 800-900 years, right? You still got the same problem. You still got to go grocery shopping. So what if instead of going out to get those high powerful souls and to find them and separate them from the shaft and then, you know, call them, like, what if instead you could have those high powered souls come to you? What if you could have them feed themselves to your phylactery so that way you don't have to go grocery shop? Uber Eats can deliver your shit for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's what my Lich
People will volunteer.
People volunteer. You know, if you have an area that has some good loot in it, maybe some summoned monsters that constantly fill the area, provide a little bit of challenge, some weak ones up on the surface, right?
Oh, yeah.
But
You gotta give them a taste of something. You gotta give, you know, it's a false sense of security.
There's like a small herd of zombies or some skeletons. You take them out, and there's a tomb up there on the surface. You open a sarcophagus. Oh, there's a bunch of gold and jewels and gems in here. Maybe there's a magic sword, like a +1 or something, right? That's enticing. You find an entrance. It goes down.
There's gotta be more, right?
Right?
There's gotta
You
be
go,
more.
You find more monsters. You kill them. Maybe instead of leaving behind a monster corpse, maybe they de-summon, kind of like anime style, right? And they leave behind maybe a magic stone. Maybe you can make that magic stone into magic items. What if you can take whatever remains and sell it and make some money, right? You take that, you leave. But now the word spreads. People come back. People delve deeper. find higher level monsters, challenges, loot, weapons, armor, more enticement to just keep delving further down. Stronger people come. Anyone who dies in the region gets funneled into your phylactery, their soul, because you've gone through and you've built the entire region full of magical runes. You've gone through and you've created this compound that is just one giant soul funnel to where anything that dies in the region, their soul just goes into your phylactery. You set this up, you get some spells on with contingency, you tap into a natural mana vein to repower the whole system.
So what happens if the refractory gets full and people still die?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. So, in my setting, to kind of catch those souls that might be spillover, my Lich has created a fully spherical dome of like a shield around this compound that traps souls.
Just
So
like those blankets that come down in like Jujutsu Kaisen sometimes. I don't know if either of you guys have seen that.
a little bit, yeah. It's like anything that happens
But
within
specifically
this,
for
but specifically for souls. So like any living being or whatnot, like you could pass through that barrier no problem. But if you die inside, your soul doesn't go to your afterlife. It sticks around in that region, and when there's space in the phylactery, you get funneled into the phylactery. But you're right, the phylactery could only, like, it could hold multiple, maybe a lot of souls.
But eventually,
right?
it's going to have to be
But
full.
it's going to be a finite number of souls, right? So you set up the system to just keep your phylactery topped off. And it creates its own incentive for adventurers to come. It keeps itself maintained, keeps the monsters spawning, keeps the danger there. And because it's set up to entice and attract, right? You have your weak monsters and weak challenges at the top, and it gets progressively stronger. And that gives you the chance to have a floor boss at each floor, right? Before proceeding on to the next, like really stereotypical, like anime dungeon style, right? Like you can take Isolgon's Tomb of Nazarick and just like stick it into your setting if you put this veneer of lore on top of it.
Well, and you're basically you're resetting everybody who went down there and died left behind items. So it's like you're restocking the treasure, you're restocking. I mean, some of the bosses you might want extra lore, like they only got so far, and then the Lich saw potential in them, like, hey, instead of dying, why don't you become one of mine, or like a mind control thing.
I think that's one of my questions. Is like, say hypothetically a group of adventurers goes down and they do the whole dungeon and they clear floor after floor after floor after floor. Maybe they die halfway down, whatever. What happens to all those floors that they cleared? How do they repopulate with creatures?
So the dungeon itself would spawn more. So, for instance, there's a few animes that are central around like dungeon delving. I'm thinking, like Konosuba is one of them, right? Where you kill a monster and it despawns, but it leaves behind like a magic stone. Right, and you can use those magic stones as currency, and they can use them to like create magic items and power magical stuff, and like generally be like a power source, right? So the stronger monster you kill, the better stone you get, right? But the dungeon itself spawns those monsters. So in this scenario, in this setup that I have, it's the whole architecture is designed to incorporate all these magical like sigils and runes and glyphs and everything to where it taps into the natural mana of the world there and uses that. Like think about like geothermal energy.
So
right?
so is the idea that they are, when you say spawning, are you saying like these creatures are being created by this thing?
Yep.
So you're not pulling them from another dimension. You're not.
And the
they're
idea would be that
just
this is just magic the Lich has learned over his centuries of
Exactly.
life, that he's just learned how to do that.
With enough prep time, you can do anything with the magic. I mean, if you're a tier 9 spellcaster,
Oh yeah.
and you have centuries, you can do anything.
Well, especially if
right?
he's dipped into necromancy. I mean, at that
you
point.
have to in order to become a Lich.
Well, I mean, if he's like dived into
I mean, that's what was my first thought. I was like, okay, you're killing them, and then there's like some spell that comes in and reanimates all these dead things. But then you started talking about moving their corpses and stuff like that, and if you're talking about there are no actual corpses, but they're just these stones that are currency, I'm curious, like, does the tomb make these stones and then create the creatures around them, or is it just like that's what is left over when you defeat these things? Like their essence gets compressed into this stone, and that's what's left.
Gotcha. I would say the first one for my setup, right? The dungeon spawns it pulls in the ambient mana, and from a wide region too. It's not like just this compound. It's like mile radius around this compound, like miles and miles, right? So you're looking at like just a huge swath of area. So it's pulling in the ambient mana from the world around it, and over time it's compressing and condensing and creating these magical stones, and it's pre-programmed by the Lich to say, like, floor 1, you got 50 skeletons, and their orders are patrol these hallways, and you got these many, like, zombies,
so
and you got, like, maybe a couple of
full-on manufacturing, like, I almost feel like Star Wars level, like, droid assemblies.
Yeah,
like,
because
it's like,
alright,
I need to create you, alright, now I need to give you your commands, alright, now I need to send you to your floor, alright, now I need to make sure that and so you have this, like, infinite chain looped events, like a if this then that, type situation for this dungeon, floor by floor, room by room, that this dude's set up over God knows how long.
Even your floor bosses follow the same logic, right? Except there's one of them. Instead of it being like, and you have 50 skeletons on this floor, it'd be like, and you have one Ubermensch, right? That spawns, and your orders are guard this door, right? That type of thing. So again, it's fully set up, it's fully automated.
I mean, I would think, especially if you get to the point where we get this dome around all of this. Now, I don't know exactly how your realm deals with souls, but I know I've talked with Vortex a little about in his realm, like, souls are like an extreme source of energy and power.
Hell yeah.
So if hypothetically you had some excess souls out here, not only can you tap into the mana of like Gaia and nature, just the world around you, but you could also tap into all the excess souls that are just sitting here floating around.
Exactly.
Use them, compress them, turn them into all kinds of extra stuff.
Days, right, when this place was first set up and kind of like first discovered, adventurers would travel. It was in a really remote region, in a forest. Adventurers would travel there, find their stuff, get some loot, come back, and the word would spread, and more people would start going. And then you get little settlements and whatnot that start to pop up, not like right next to the tomb entrance, but like, maybe a half day's walk away. So that way, like, you could still be kind of set up, and you don't have to like do a bunch. So that would spawn like little city settlements all over the place, and with more adventurers coming and more people being within the dome. Because again, the dome of soul capture, like, if this is the compound, the dome is like a long way away. So it would actually encompass a lot of the little settlements that pop up.
Right.
So you got people that are living under that dome and dying under that dome.
And those are just the basic souls,
and
which
those
go quick, but they still have them.
And stuff like that are coming and dying. And so you're right, the phylactery will get to a point to where it fills up, but you still got that soul dome capture.
Mm-hmm.
People are still dying. People are still going, like, passing on, but not to the afterlife. Their souls are still stuck there.
Yeah.
And after so long of the soul just sort of being free-bound and not funneled into the phylactery because it's full, or you're just so far back in the queue that's like, it's just not going to happen, right? The soul, without passing on, can easily become corrupted, become a specter, like a banshee. All of your various, like, undead ghosty goos, right?
Mm-hmm.
They come from somewhere, and with being in this giant soul dome, right, that over time, when the phylactery is full, it starts creating a region that is naturally, quote unquote, haunted.
Mm.
So then, with all these specters and all these, like, various undead happening, and all these ghosts and whatnot that are not part of the recycled manufacturer, like dungeon, right? they're just out and about, and that's going to drive people away. And now you've got like a really haunted region that people don't go to. There used to be settlements, but not anymore. It got haunted as fuck. Poltergeists and shit. People left. So the tomb becomes forgotten. Centuries pass, right? There's enough souls in that phylactery to last the Lich a long ass time. Plus,
And
all
naturally,
the residual souls.
all the naturally, the haunting souls will be used up over time.
Yeah.
Because eventually the phylactery will need a new soul. So if centuries go by with no one there, the natural hauntingness, because it'll ebb and flow, right? People will move in, everything will get too bad, people will leave. Things will die down just enough to maintain some eeriness, but it'll die down to where people will move in.
People who want to like go mess with like the haunted area,
Or someone who
like,
goes.
oh, it's not that bad.
Exactly. And then everyone comes back, and then it ramps up.
The fucking wraith comes out and kills the party of low-level adventurers that got cocky and shit. And now you got fresh souls added to the mix that haven't become corrupted yet. They could easily be funneled into the phylactery, right? So
Ooh, you know what would be
allows
really
it to
fun?
Lost and forgotten.
A random chance encounter, like at like every gaming session while they're inside the bubble, they have like a 1% chance. So every gaming session they roll a d20 or like a, percentiles, and if they get the like 1 or 10% chance, there are fresh souls that did not make it to the refractory that are still like good. Like they're adventurers or normal people, and they're still maintained. So you have like a low level chance you're in the forest, or you're in there, and then you pop them, and then they're helpful. Like you could talk to them.
That's
they
where
could,
the helpful goes.
yeah, they could just basically like, we can't go past this area, but we can give you guidance up till this point. That would be kind of interesting because again, you have so many different dynamics that you could actually like learn some things.
Plot twist. So going back to the phylactery, right? The phylactery, if you look into the lore, it has to be a solid object. It has to be like one piece of something, right? So meaning a chest with a lid doesn't count.
Gotcha.
Because that's two pieces.
Oh.
It's not one piece.
Interesting.
It's two pieces connected together.
Gotcha.
So in my setting, the entire dungeon compound itself is one giant piece of like carved stone. Like it's one thing that was manufactured, like carved out and manufactured. So the dungeon itself
Is the refractory?
is the phylactery. So in order to defeat the Lich,
That's
you have to
hardcore.
destroy the phylactery. And if you're looking through this dungeon, 13th floor compound,
It's-
right,
you're literally
trying to
looking at
find
it.
like you're inside the phylactery, like you're in it the entire time,
That's interesting.
right?
Hopefully there'll be some clues. There definitely should be some clues on every level.
Level 9
that
meteor
that.
sword. That's how you take it out. Like you got a divinely powered.
But there should be
Or
like
just
every
become a really, really good barrel mancer.
right. But I'm just every level should have some sort of clue that individually will never give it the whole thing away. But once you get like just over half, like you don't have to finish the whole thing, but it should start piecing things together. Like, oh, like maybe the first couple clues be like, oh, this thing's big. Like we're looking for something like really big. Then the next couple of clues are like, it says it's like in but everywhere. Like it's like it's not in a vault. It just says it's like here. And then like you get these like what is it like this thing? It can't possibly be this big. Like you just get these very odd clues that are just like what, and then it's like when you get to that last one, you're like, the last clue is like you've been in the heart the whole time, and you're like, we've been in it the whole time.
One of your players has some ability to like sense what direction is the phylactery in.
And it's just once you enter,
And it's like once you go into the dungeon, you're like, dude, this sense, I don't know what it is.
It's
man.
everywhere.
It's fucking, it doesn't work anymore. I'm just getting
It's like casting
static.
detect magic in a magic shop.
Yeah, it's just you go blind, right? Or it's like, when you old school TVs between the channels, it's just a static. Like instead of getting like a direction, right? It's just static is what you get with this type of thing.
Yeah.
That could be like let's say they have a divine boon that lets them sense where the phylactery is.
Yeah.
Like the direction of the phylactery, and
Takes them here.
like
right?
you're
Rock
there.
them here.
Well, that's the thing is like you could just be super vague and just once they finally look at it all, take a step back and stop acting like it's direction somewhere, and you look at all of the clues, you're like, dude, this is it literally has told us this is it, but all the clues are like, oh yeah, that forest, that's it. That building, that's it. Yeah, that vault, that's it. Every clue was basically pointing at this place is it, but it's worded to where you think it's pointing you further and deeper in, but every clue is literally just pointing directly where you're at.
You specifically word it to allow the player to infer, you're not insinuating.
Yes.
They're inferring.
You let them make the assumptions.
That's the way it is. You just sort of lead them. So that's my compound, basically. It explains why this particular region in my setting, this forest, is haunted as fuck. Because it's under that soul dome.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. So you have the haunted, you have the haunted layer on top.
Haunted layer on top.
And that's just a byproduct. That wasn't even a requirement, or it wasn't even designed.
That's an
design flaw.
Consequence of the design.
I want all of the bard songs about this place.
Right.
So that's how I have devised a classic dungeon delve scenario experience that my players, anybody in my setting, can go through, because it's there and it's self-maintaining.
Yeah, and if they die, like I like the idea too. Like if you had one party or one player or even just a group die in there, how cool would it be if any other party that you do goes back? You can call that party in for like a special, like, okay, you guys are all ghosts. Have a part, like literally have like a just.
Yet,
there's the encounter.
So you have a party, right? And their characters die there. They roll up new characters and they go again and they come back. And they see their own ghosts. Like
I would like the idea that they have to fight their own ghosts. Like that's the encounter.
Yeah. And it's like, wait, no, but I was a cleric. I would have passed on. Be like, you didn't pass on.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, and that's just loads the lore. Oh my god, like, yeah, that would be so crazy.
Yeah.
All right, where are we at? So
that's my Lich build.
I like it. It's really dope. Like it's a solid build.
That's just the compound. The Lich isn't even fucking there.
Yeah. That's just how
we feed the pantry, basically, like we stock the pantry. It's not even there.
So before we do end, though, we do have one more question from Cosmic, and I know we are still kind of figuring out when you're going to be back in, whether it's going to be this Thursday. You said that you might be pretty busy.
It's not going to be this Thursday.
Okay, so it won't be this Thursday. Maybe next Monday.
Maybe. We'll see. There's some live stuff going on.
Live stuff happens?
Once that live stuff happens, I'm going to be kind of MIA for a few weeks at the inside. I do plan on coming back. The live stuff won't keep me from coming back.
It'll be a while, though.
Make me a little unavailable from time. However, it does look like the evil playthrough. We should still be able to do that the majority of our scheduled times. And
you can also do remote too. So some of the live stuff is mainly just keeping you at home, but maybe they. So when we get you back in, we definitely want. I keep pushing this off, but we need time to do this. We do want to have you go through all of the previously homebrew reviewed items that we've done, get your ideas on it and everything. So to kind of make a decision now, because we can't. Life is happening. We can't guarantee us when it will happen. But when it does happen, let's make one decision real quick. Because Cosmic would really like to know, how do we plan on going through these items? We can do it chronologically. He likes the idea of doing like a dice roll and just hitting it randomly. Or I could try to figure out which order. There's so many items at this point, I don't even know which order would be best. But yeah, it could be chronological, the way that Kage and I have gone through them, or he's kind of liking the idea of like a dice roll or like a random selection. But what do you think? What do you what would you like to do?
I'm of two minds. On one hand, I like the idea of going chronologically because one, it's easy to track, and it's easy to make sure that we don't accidentally do duplicates, that sort of thing, right? And it's the same way ultimately that you guys went through them, so it'd be kind of like me catching up.
Right.
So on one hand, I like that. On the other hand, I kind of like the idea because it does seem like there's a good amount of them.
I think we're at like 12 or 13.
Able to be done in a single stream.
That's true.
Right. So, in that case, I think that maybe if y'all were to pick like your top 10 or like top 7, whatever, right? Like a number that we can go through in a single stream.
There are 10 that you have not gone over so far.
Okay.
We did one today. We did one last week.
Right.
There are 10 others
specifically. But judging by how long today's went, it took us an hour.
No. So just hypothetically speaking, if you wanted to do a dice, D10 would be the dice.
So we could do that. My only hesitation there is some of them are. We haven't gotten all of the sets yet, but some of them are like in sets, have shared lore, have shared backstory. So part of me kind of wants to properly set those up together. So Maybe what we'll do is we'll maybe do the D10 roll, and whenever we grab one that has a set, we'll do all of the sets with that roll, and then we'll keep it going.
That's fair. I also think this could potentially be like a recurring segment because again, it took us like an hour, 45 minutes or so to go through the first one. But there's 10 that you want me to go through.
Yeah.
Going by the same pace, it's going to be.
We'll probably go a little bit faster because again, this one was a live one. All three of us were fresh, got all of our ideas. Most of these will be rereading them to you and let you just kind of rapid firing like your initial thoughts. So won't take like an hour each, but it's still a good 15-20 minutes each minimum because
all 10 still might not happen in one session.
Yeah, definitely not. So okay, so I think what we'll do is that we'll definitely do more of a random selection. But if we run into something like one of the dragon scales that has other ones as part of the series, I'll probably tie all of those in together right then and there because they all share the same lore. I do think he'll like Sid too. I think Sid. I think he. Let's see. Out of all the ones I remember, I think Sid and the Cosminium Gem, I think, are going to be the two that he likes the most. Out of all of the ones, I mean, the Robe of Accumulative Knowledge and its predecessor, the more divine one, those are great ideas. I think he'll like the background of them a little bit. But yeah, I think the Gem and Sid, I think, will be the most interesting. And okay, that's you talking to him. All right, cool. But yeah, I think that's all we're gonna have for today. So next time I get Lolcypher in here, we will do the re-review. I just don't know when that will be, but that will happen. I will make sure that happens at some point, maybe on a Monday, maybe on a Thursday, but we will see. Otherwise, as of right now, I am still planning on doing a Thursday stream. That one hasn't had a reason to be canceled yet, but just stay posted with the Discord. In fact, if you haven't yet, you guys can. Actually, would you mind posting about the Discord? We do have our Discord. It's up and running, so if you haven't joined yet, come on and join in. There's like a 3-step process to get in. You just gotta accept the rules. Hit the like on the thing that says that you're here, and then just post your name for your Twitch so we can verify that you're a follower. That's all you need to do, and then you can talk to us on Discord, give us suggestions. We're still building it here, but come and join us there, and you can talk to all of us. If you liked anything that you saw today, or if you missed anything you want to see it, you can join. You could see this as well as all of our previous ones on YouTube. I have all of our previous streams there at MisfitGamersStudios on YouTube, so you can go check that out. We regularly stream every Monday and Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for D&D discussions, and you can catch me on the weekends when I do pop-up games. Right now I'm playing Shadows of Doubt and Baldur's Gate 3. Cosmic, so your question on the Robe of Elemental Defense, which is the higher one, since there were 2 versions, one is buffed. So in that particular case, I'd probably do those 2 together, or again, depending on which one comes first. And if we were to do that, then I think it'll just be played by ear. But yeah, those 2 would probably be described together because they are kind of basically the bigger and little brother of each other. But yeah, so that's all of it for us today. Again, like I said, join us again on Thursday. Join us this weekend for more games, and go check us out on YouTube if you want to see any of the other ones. Anything from you guys while we go out?
I love it, man. Appreciate being here, and deuces, my friends.
All right.
Stay frosty.
Y'all have a great rest of your week, and we will see you on Thursday.